Good day everyone, welcome to grade 9 science class. This is Rosalie Custodio. Today our topic is about respiratory system. At the end of our lesson, you are expected to identify the key parts of the breathing system and describe the function of each part of the breathing system. Explain how the lungs work, and describe how the movement of the diaphragm helps the air go in and out of the lungs. The respiratory system consists of the lungs and the various breathing tubes that allow air to reach the lungs. The respiratory system allows gas exchange. It brings oxygen into the body and gets rid of carbon dioxide. All animals must undergo gas exchange to stay alive. You can live without water for a few days and without food for more than a week, but you will die immediately if you stop breathing for more than few minutes. Every minute you breathe in about 6 liters of air. Without this frequent intake, the cells in your body would die quickly. Air contains oxygen. Our body cells need a continuous supply of it to support its energy-producing processes. As a result of this process, your cells can perform all the vital tasks that keep you alive. The body system that gets oxygen into the body and removes carbon dioxide from the body is the respiratory system. The respiratory system assists in gas exchange. The respiratory system allows oxygen from the air to enter the blood and carbon dioxide to leave the blood and enter the air. The cardiovascular system transports oxygen from the lungs to the cells of the body and carbon dioxide from the cells of the body to the lungs. Thus, the respiratory and cardiovascular system work together to supply oxygen to all cells and to remove carbon dioxide. Without healthy respiratory system and circulatory system, the capacity to carry out normal activity is reduced, and without adequate respiratory and circulatory system functions, life itself is impossible. Let us find out more in this activity. Picture labeling. Label the picture with the correct words found on the right. Write your answer in your notebook. Here are the answers. This is nasal cavity, mouth, trachea, bronchus, alveoli, left lung, diaphragm, bronchioles, and right lung. The organs of the respiratory tract can be divided into two groups structurally, the upper respiratory tract and the lower respiratory tract. The upper respiratory tract consists of the nose, nasal cavities, pharynx, and larynx. And the lower respiratory tract is composed of the trachea, bronchi, and bronchioles. Before air reaches the lungs, it must be first processed. Even what seems to be clean air contains dust particles and bacteria. The air in urban areas may contain more bacteria and pollutants than the air in rural areas. If the air entering the body is not processed, filtered out, cleaned, warmed, and moistened, it could carry diseases and pollutants in the lungs and can damage lung tissues. Now let us study the main features of your respiratory system. Let us trace how air enters our body. The air you breathe in is inhaled through the nose, where it is filtered through the two openings called the nostrils. The term nose refers to the visible structure that forms a prominent feature of the face. Most of the nose is composed of cartilage, although the bridge of the nose consists of bone. The bone and cartilage are covered by connective tissue and skin. The nostrils serve as the entrance to your nasal cavities. They are a pair of passageways separated by a bony septum. Inside the right and left nasal cavities are coarse hairs that filter the air and trap any organism or dust particles that may enter your nose. A ciliated mucous membrane is also found lining the walls of the nasal cavities. It is richly supplied with blood capillaries capable of warming and moistening the air that is breathed in. This prevents damage of your delicate lung tissues. Sometimes the throat particles may irritate your nasal cavities and cause you to sneeze. Sneezing expels and helps prevent these particles from entering the parts of the lower respiratory system. Air can flow through the nasal cavity when the mouth is closed or when the oral cavity is full of food. Both your nasal passages and your mouth open into the pharynx. If your nasal passages are blocked, air can reach your lungs through your mouth. Although your mouth may not clean or warm the air you breathe, it can also serve as passageway of air. Have you tried breathing through your mouth? The warmed, moistened, and filtered air moves through a muscular tube in your upper throat called the pharynx. The pharynx is a common passageway for food and air. It leads to two passageways, the esophagus and the trachea. The esophagus leads to the digestive system, while the trachea leads to the respiratory system. On each sides and roof are collections of lymph glands, the tonsils and adenoids. These glands pick up and destroy the bacteria trapped in the film of the mucus. Do you know that you have a magic harp in your body which allows you to talk, cry, sing, and laugh? Try this. Put your fingertips lightly on front of your throat. Hum a tune. Do you feel the vibration under your skin? The wind that produced this vibration and the tune produced when you hum came from your lungs. What you felt under your skin is your magic harp, your larynx. The strings of your harp are the vocal cords. Some people call this structure Adam's apple. Your larynx lies in a small cave of muscle in the front of your neck, a little below the back of your tongue. It is protected by a top layer of cartilage. The entrance to this cave of muscle is protected from the food you eat by the epiglottis. The epiglottis is a flap of tissue that closes the entrance to the rest of the respiratory system when you swallow. As a result, food and water are routed to the digestive system. Similarly, when you breathe, the epiglottis stays open, permitting air to enter the respiratory system. But when you swallow food and liquids, the epiglottis closes, sending the contents of the pharynx into the esophagus. Why do you sometimes choke or cough? At times, particles containing food or other solids stored toward the lungs. When this happens, your body protects its air supply by giving a short, sharp blow from your lungs. This is why you choke or cough. The epiglottis helps prevent swallowed materials from entering the larynx. As the larynx elevates during swallowing, the epiglottis sticks posteriorly to cover the openings of the larynx. Two elastic ligaments or vocal cords are also found in the larynx, which produces our voice. The vocal cords are the primary source of voice production. Air moving past the vocal cords causes them to vibrate, producing sound. Muscles control the length and tension of the vocal cords. The force of air moving past the vocal cords control the loudness, and the tension of the vocal cords control the pitch of the voice. Take a moment now and gently put your finger in front of your neck. This tube-like structure is called the trachea or the windpipe. It looks like a vacuum cleaner hose and acts as the main passageway to the lungs. The bumps you touch on the trachea are actually rings or bands of cartilage, tough but flexible connective tissue. Because of the rings of the cartilage, the trachea is flexible enough to keep the passageway open for air. As the air moves down into the trachea, its ciliary lining and mucus trap dust particles and bacteria that have managed to get past the nose. Sometimes, some of the particles may collect in the trachea, causing an irritation. This then triggers a response that causes a person to cough out the foreign particles. Before entering the lungs, the air reaches a place where the trachea branches into two tubes, the left and the right bronchi, singular bronchus. The left bronchus enters the left lung and the right bronchus enters the right lung. They continue to divide again and again, becoming narrower until they appear like tiny tubes the size of twigs called bronchioles. At the end of these tiny tubes are hundreds of round air sacs that resemble clusters of grapes on a stem. These air sacs are called alveoli, singular alveolus, which inflate during inhalation and deflate during exhalation. The alveoli are gateways for oxygen into the body. The alveoli serve as the site of respiration in the lungs, wherein the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide takes place. Each alveolus is surrounded by tiny blood vessels or capillaries. Its walls are thin and moist. That is why gases can easily diffuse across the membrane of the alveolus. After carbon dioxide has passed from the blood through the capillary and alveolar wall, it is breathed out by your lungs. Oxygen that enters your lungs goes through the alveolar and capillary walls and goes into your bloodstream to enter your body cells. Having moved through the nose and the trachea, the incoming air is now clean, moist, and warm, ready for its main destination, the lungs. The lungs, the main organs of the respiratory system, are sponge-like organs located in the chest cavity, bounded on the sides by the ribs and on the bottom by the diaphragm. Your left lung is slightly smaller than your right. It has two main divisions or lobes, while the right lung has three. The lungs surround the heart and fill most of the cavity inside the ribs. The lungs are symmetrical pair, but they are not completely identical because the left lung is smaller than the right. If one lobe is injured or diseased, the other may not be affected and may still function normally. The lungs are also surrounded by a thin membrane called pleura. Its main function is to lessen friction when it expands during breathing. The diaphragm, a powerful muscle nestled in the bottom of the rib cage, aids in the respiration. When your diaphragm moves down and your ribs spread, your lungs are stretched. At this point, air flows in through your nose and windpipe to fill the extra space. After some time, your diaphragm relaxes and your lungs are squeezed back to their original size. At this condition, much of the air is forced out. Now you already know the parts and functions of the respiratory system. Let us now proceed to the four phases of respiration. Respiration is usually confused with breathing. The two concepts are related processes, but they are not the same. Respiration is the overall exchange of gases, how the body gets oxygen and gets rid of carbon dioxide among the atmosphere, the blood, and the cells, while breathing is just a phase in respiration. Respiration processes includes the following: breathing, oxygen into and carbon dioxide out of the lungs; external respiration, gas exchange between air and blood; internal respiration, gas exchange between blood and the tissues; and cellular respiration, oxygen used to produce ATP and carbon dioxide is the waste product. Let's elaborate. Respiration is usually confused with breathing. The two concepts are related processes, but they are not the same. Respiration is the overall exchange of gases and how the body gets oxygen and gets rid of carbon dioxide among the atmosphere, the blood, and the cells, while breathing is just a phase in respiration. Respiration in humans consists of four phases. We have breathing, the act of taking air in and out of the lungs; external respiration, exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide between the air and the blood within the lungs; internal respiration, it is the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide between the blood and the body cells; and cellular respiration, the process of using oxygen to break down sugar in food, producing energy which is ATP in cells and releasing carbon dioxide as a waste product. Breathing covers the first step of respiration. The breathing system is used by the body to get the oxygen needed for respiration. Oxygen is one of the mixtures of gases found in the air. It is also used to get rid of one of the waste products of respiration, the gas carbon dioxide. Breathing in and breathing out are separate processes in the body. Breathing in is called inhalation. When you inhale, you breathe air, including oxygen, into your lungs. When you exhale, you breathe out the contents of your lungs and get rid of the waste gas carbon dioxide. What happens when you breathe in and out? What happens to the volume of your lungs and chest when you inhale and exhale? And what causes their volume to increase and decrease? So let's find out. What are the major organs and muscles associated with inhalation and exhalation? You are correct. Lungs, ribcage, and diaphragm. And what happens when you breathe in and out? Breathing out. As you breathe out, your diaphragm moves upward and the intercostal muscle between your ribs tighten, causing the ribcage to move down and in. When you exhale, the intercostal muscles and diaphragm relax, causing chest volume to decrease. And what happens when you breathe in? As you breathe in, your diaphragm moves downward and the muscles between your ribs contract, causing the ribcage to move up and out. As you inhale, the intercostal muscles and diaphragm contract, causing the volume of the chest cavity to increase. Let's take a look at the mechanisms of breathing during inhalation. When you breathe in, the intercostal muscles between the ribs contract, pulling the chest walls up and out. The diaphragm muscle below the lungs contract and flattens, increasing the size of the chest. And the lungs increase in size, so the pressure inside them falls. This causes air to rush in through the nose or mouth. During exhalation, when you breathe out, intercostal muscles between the ribs relax so that the chest walls move in and down. The diaphragm muscles below the lungs relaxes and bulges up, reducing the size of the chest. And the lungs decrease in size, so the pressure inside increases and air is pushed up the trachea and out through the nose or mouth. How do we stop hiccup? You have probably experienced hiccups every now and then. You probably tried almost every remedy to get rid of them, from drinking lots of water without stopping for air to holding your breath. The clicking sound that you hear is actually caused by your diaphragm, which is a skeletal muscle and therefore can be controlled voluntarily. Sometimes the diaphragm contracts involuntarily when its nerves become irritated either by eating too fast or by some other conditions. Drinking lots of water or holding your breath help reduce the oxygen supply and increase the carbon dioxide level of your body. This remedy can cause the involuntary contractions of the diaphragm, the hiccups, to stop. Breathing during exercise. Muscle cell respiration increases, means more oxygen is used up and levels of carbon dioxide rise. The brain detects increasing levels of carbon dioxide. A signal is sent to the lungs to increase breathing. The human brain regulates the breathing rate of the person through a breathing center located in the medulla oblongata. Although breathing is an automatic process, you can choose to interfere with it temporarily. Try holding your breath now and observe yourself. You probably cannot hold the breath much longer than a minute or two. After that short breath, carbon dioxide begins to build up in your blood, and your body begins to ask for oxygen. Thus, you start to breathe again. Breathing rate and the volume of air in each breath increase. This means that more gaseous exchange takes place. Infants breathe 30 to 40 times a minute. At about 6 years of age, the breathing rate slows down to about 22 times a minute. At your age, until you are about 25, the rate is further slowed down, about 16 to 18 times a minute. An exception is when you are an athlete or when you engage in hard work. Your rate of breathing in such cases will be higher. The brain also tells the heart to beat faster so that more blood is pumped to the lungs for gaseous exchange. And more oxygenated blood gets to the muscles and more carbon dioxide is removed. Let's have the effects of exercise on lung structures. In the long term, regular exercise strengthens the respiratory system. The respiratory muscles, the diaphragm, and the intercostal muscles get stronger so they can make the chest cavity larger. This larger chest cavity means more air can be inspired, therefore increasing your vital capacity. More capillaries from around the alveoli, so more gaseous exchange can take place. Gas exchange can now take place more quickly, meaning exercise can be maintained at a higher intensity for longer. The second phase of respiration is external respiration, or the transport of gases with the circulatory system. Let us take a closer look at this process. In the illustration, each alveolus is surrounded by a network of tiny blood vessels called capillaries. In the lungs, 600 million alveoli, the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide between the blood and inhaled air take place. The walls of the alveoli and the capillaries share a fused basement. They are so close that oxygen and carbon dioxide diffuse or move freely between the respiratory system and the bloodstream. As a result, when air enters the alveoli, oxygen in the air seeps through the thin walls of the tiny sacs into the surrounding capillaries. Gas exchange at the alveoli. The alveoli are bunches of tiny air sacs inside the lungs. Each individual sac is called an alveolus. When you breathe in, they fill with air. The alveoli are covered in tiny capillaries or blood vessels. Gases can pass through the thin walls of each alveolus and capillary and into the bloodstream. Gases can also pass from the bloodstream into the alveolus. Inhaled oxygen diffuses from the alveolus into the blood in the capillary. Carbon dioxide diffuses out of the blood into the alveolus and is exhaled. What happens in the alveoli during gas exchange? Gas exchange takes place within the alveoli by diffusion of oxygen and carbon dioxide between inhaled air and the bloodstream. Stage 1, when air is inhaled, the amount of oxygen inside the alveoli increases and the concentration of oxygen in the lung becomes greater than in the deoxygenated blood. Stage 2, oxygen molecules diffuse across the lining of the alveoli into the bloodstream of the capillary. There, they bind to the red blood cells. Stage 3, the body produces carbon dioxide during respiration. This causes the concentration of carbon dioxide in the blood to rise and become greater than in the lung. And stage 4, carbon dioxide dissolved in the blood diffuses from the capillary into the alveoli from where it is exhaled. Third respiration process is the internal respiration, or the exchange of gases with body cells. Internal respiration refers to the exchange of gas at the level of body cells. It brings oxygen from your lungs to all the other tissues in your body and takes out carbon dioxide from the tissues back to your lungs as a waste product. As blood slowly moves through the capillaries, it picks up the oxygen and carries it to the cells throughout the body. When the oxygen-rich blood reaches the cells, it releases the oxygen. At the same time, the blood picks up the carbon dioxide produced by the cells during the respiration and returns it to the alveoli, where it is released from your body when you exhale. Lastly, cellular respiration, our body's energy-releasing process. Recall from grade 8 that the digestive system breaks down food into nutrients which can then enter the body cells. We know that fire burns only if there is enough oxygen in the air. Similarly, body cells use the food they get from the blood and release energy within it only if they get enough oxygen. The energy-releasing process, fueled by oxygen, is called cellular respiration. Cellular respiration also produces carbon dioxide. carbon dioxide as a metabolic waste product of cellular respiration is toxic to cells and must be removed. As an overview, the circulatory system transports blood and food molecules to body cells via the red blood cells. In this process, oxygen combines with food in the cells to produce energy for the body and eliminate waste products, carbon dioxide and water vapor. Cellular respiration requires a continuous supply of oxygen in order to break down sugar from food and release energy. Gas exchange, therefore, involves the coordinated work of the respiratory and the circulatory system. Let's dig in. Label each part and give its functions. You may write your answer in your notebook. 1. Nasal passages or nasal cavity. Air enters the body through the nasal passages during normal breathing. 2. Larynx. Air passing over the larynx produces sounds for speaking. 3. Trachea or windpipe. Air passes down the trachea to the lungs. The trachea is a flexible tube stiffened by rings of cartilage. 4. Bronchi, singular bronchus. The trachea splits into two bronchi carrying air to each of the lungs. 5. Bronchus. The bronchi split into smaller tubes called bronchus that distribute air to the alveoli. 6. Alveoli. Air eventually reaches millions of tiny air sacs in the lungs called alveoli. Their walls are so thin that gases can pass through. 7. Ribs. The rib cage protects the lungs but is mobile enough to allow the chest to expand and contract during breathing. 8. Intercostal muscles. The muscle between the ribs help your chest to expand when you breathe in. And 9. Diaphragm. This is a sheet of muscle under the lungs. It contracts and moves down to expand the chest cavity when you breathe in. Let's remember, movement of oxygen and carbon dioxide in and out of the respiratory system. Oxygen-rich air from environment enters the body through the nasal passages or nasal cavity, and then through the pharynx, then through trachea, which divide into two branches called the bronchial tubes or bronchi. The bronchi subdivide many times inside the lungs, forming hair-like tubes called bronchioles. At the end of the bronchioles are tiny bubble-like structures called alveoli. And then oxygen and carbon dioxide exchange at alveoli, pass through the bronchioles, then to bronchi, then to trachea, to pharynx, to nasal cavities, and carbon dioxide-rich air to the environment. So this is the end of our lesson. I hope you learned something new today. Once again, this has been your teacher, Rosalie Custodio, saying, learning science is fun, cool, and awesome. Watch out for the next video lesson in science. Answer the questions and activities in your module appropriately, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, students, thank you for watching and have a nice day.